So I was thinking about how do I connect with students, and I think one thing that I have learned is that really take it personal. Sometimes I talk to my kids about my family, about my daughter. They know about my daughter. Sometimes I show them a little picture because I think talking about my personal life helps them open up maybe and talk to us about their own life. So I'm not afraid of talking to them about my family. And even in reading, when sometimes I need to make a connection with reading, I tell a story that has happened to me before. Um, One thing that I have learned to do with the most challenging kids is that I have learned not to take it personal. I understand that whatever they're doing is not direct to me. They don't behave the way they are behaving because they want to purposely hurt me or purposely get to me. So I always think of in every situation, it's not about me, it's about what they're going through. It helps me deal with them if I understand it's not personal. That's it.
I think that after working here for a total of 5 years, I've realized that in order for a classroom here to be functional, you need to be able to connect with them. So I get to know their interests, I get to know their home life, I get to know their family, their background. And although at times it's hard to kind of listen to what they have to say, because it's things that I probably would have never known at 10 years old, it begins to kind of fill the pieces to the puzzle of why they are the way they are. Lunch bunches is the thing that I do. Morning meetings I do. Conferences with the Mammoth Builder program I do. And they really like it because it's one-on-one time. So although I know that at times the classroom's crazy, you kind of have to take that time to meet with them and kind of just let them know that you're there for them and that you love them. A lot of my students will ask me, Ms. Kewen, do you love me? And I have to be like, yeah, I do. Some days, not so much, but other days I do. So you have to kind of pick your battles and fight the trenches with everybody and kind of just work as a team and make sure that it functions as a whole for the success of the students here.
Can you talk a little bit about how you were able to connect with your most difficult student?
That took a long time. It took, I would say, a good 2.5 weeks from the first day of school. And he's a difficult one. However, I think that he realized that I do have his back and that I'm there for him. You know, we're working as a team. I'm not out to get him. And a lot of kids have this mentality that we don't like them and that we make them do work and he finally, when he got his grade for reading on his progress report, he looked at me like he had never seen that grade before. And it was a good moment because I had seen that even though we work together and though I make you push you harder, it does benefit. And I think it's because he knows that I'm there for him and that he can come to me, he can ask me questions, and that I'm a safe place for him to come to me at times.
Have you ever felt like quitting or giving up?
I think we've all felt like quitting at some point. But then I think of my kids who are the toughest and what they would do if I wasn't there, and it does make me get up and go to work every day. I also think of the ones that are here every day with smiles, and I love working in a place like this because it is a challenge, but it's also really rewarding, and the kids here need us.
It's important to build that relationship. Ask them questions about themselves, ask them questions about their family, and then follow up on it. Ask how they're doing. If you build a relationship with their parents, their caregiver, and genuinely act like you care about them, I think that will help build a positive relationship with the student. It seemed to have worked.
Talk about connecting with your most challenging student. How were you able to do that?
I'm trying to think because pretty much everyone in the BLS class is a challenging student, but I definitely think the way you say stuff, you really need to understand where the student's coming from. So what I say to one student, I might not say the same way to the other student. Really individualizing it for the student. So, I mean, they might not see it as fair, but you kind of have to explain to them that even though so-and-so is doing this for 5 minutes and you're doing it for 2, everyone has different needs. Did I veer off the question?
Yep, that sounds right. Yeah, sure. Have you ever thought about quitting or stop, not wanting to do it anymore?
I mean, yeah, I feel like there's definitely been times where I've been burnt out and that quitting has crossed my mind, but I mean, I feel like I'm here for a reason, and I'm not gonna just walk out.
The best way for me to connect with my students is asking them about themselves, what they're doing on the weekends, what they're doing with their families, maybe over a break, and then remembering after the break or after the weekend to ask them how those things went. So it shows that you're interested in them, it shows that you care about what they're doing, and that you genuinely care about them as a person.
Can you talk about how you were able to connect with maybe your most challenging student?
One of my most challenging students, I did just what I said before, except I kind of amped it up a little bit. So I had a lunch bunch with him, got to know about what he liked, knew that he had a loose tooth, asked him if his loose tooth fell out the next day. Making sure that every day I check in with him to see how his day has started and to see how his day has ended.
Have you ever thought about quitting and giving up?
There have definitely been days where I have left exhausted and thought about how I did not necessarily want to come back the next day. But I remember that there's kids here who need me and the staff here that is willing to support me in any way possible. So I come back.
Thank you.
What helps me connect with kids is when I find things that we have in common. And I usually like to start the conversation with basic things like what's your favorite color, or what's your favorite TV show, or what do you like to eat. And particularly with little girls, if they have on a certain kind of outfit. I like colors, I like certain things, and so we start complimenting about each other's, outfits or things like that. And with the boys, with the male students, I usually like to go in from the angle of sports because I have 2 sons, and I know boys always like to talk about sports in some capacity. So I usually like to start there, but I always like to make a connection with something we may have in common. And it's really special if we share a birthday.
Can you talk a little bit about what helped you deal with your most challenging student?
What helps me deal with, or helped me deal with my most challenging student as I think back, was letting that child know that I cared about them, first and foremost. When I would see that there was a struggle or a wall, I would step back from it and let the child know that I cared.
Have you ever wanted to quit?
Yes, I have. I have wanted to quit before, but somehow there's always that reminder of why I'm here, whether it would be a conversation with a kid, or sometimes it's a note that I would find, or a child might do a drawing or something, or just say something that lets you know I can't give up, not just yet. Because there's something in every child that deserves a chance. And I really, really do believe that.
Anything else you'd like to add?
I think that's it.
Okay,
Well,
thank you.
it helps first that I have a small group of kids because it's easier for me to make time to talk with them and get to know them. But I think the most important thing is to let them know that you have time for them and you want to hear about them and you want to hear about their lives and their family and their interests. And then just talking about it with them. A lot of times I talk to my kids during morning meeting about things like that. And I always, a lot of times I have lunch bunch with them where we can just talk about them and what they're interested in. And that way they know that I care about them.
Can you talk about how you were able to connect with your most challenging student?
So most of my kids are very challenging, but I connect with them I try to just remember that even though they're challenging, the reason for that is because they need a little bit of extra care probably. So I just let them know that I'm here for them and I care about them. Even if they're challenging to me, even if they're testing my patience, they can usually tell when they're testing my patience, but letting them know that I still love them and care for them and I'm here for them.
Have you ever thought about quitting or giving up?
I have had very, very challenging, overwhelming days where I wasn't sure if I could how long I could do this, but just knowing that the kids care for me and need my help, and knowing that the staff is always here to support me has helped me keep going when it's challenging.
Great, thank you.
I think a lot of things. I definitely have a sports connection, especially with the boys. I believe in every kid, so I will break them down and build them back up. I'm just of that belief that, you know, I can come in hard, I guess, in a certain way, but then after that kind of uncomfortable and even sometimes traumatic experience, I can build them back up. And when I'm in that moment, I know they're in that moment too. And the thing that confirms it for me is after a really heated just battle, be it a restraint or be it a verbal issue, but I've held them accountable, they're upset. The next day, unsolicited, they will find me and just out of the blue come to say hello or come and just give me the biggest hug in the world. And that for me kind of solidifies that connection. Like I know it's there and I know it happened, but they reinforce it for me because they seek me out the next day. And I'm the one who instilled the consequence, or I instilled the punishment, or got them through that time. And the punishment for them is punishment for me. It's work. So we're both in there working. They're working to fulfill whatever expectation I have of them, and I'm working because it's not easy to enforce a certain type of consequence, but it's meaningful time spent, and they know it's meaningful. And the way I realize that they know it is because then the next day they seek me out. They want to let me know they're doing good. They want to give me a hug, or they just from across the room will want to say hi. So it's, you know, you got to go through that uncomfortable crisis time to get to that relationship time. And when they know that you've gone to those lengths to keep them safe and hold them accountable, they're like, yep. They don't say it, but they know it. That's what I need and that's what I want. And they seek it out the next day. So it's the best way I could describe it.
Have you ever wanted to quit?
Yeah, I mean, I think I go through moments where I've wanted to quit.
What keeps you coming back?
Kids, you know, even before I had my own kids, I've always just been kid-oriented. And I guess, too, I feel like, you know, some people will say it's a calling. I realized very early on that I was good at this for whatever reason. You know, I had a mentor. I believed in what he was telling me. And I tried it myself. I saw it work. And I saw kids connecting to me. So I knew I had a talent, I guess, in a way. And I knew very early on that I was good at this. So that's what keeps me coming back. Also, just in my own little mind, my own little world, I say to myself, like, who else is going to do it if not me? So that keeps me coming back, I guess, even after all the rough times. Who else is going to do it? I have a gift to do it, and I should do it. So I just feel that deep connection for the work.
So, Mrs. Porter, would you talk a little bit about what you think helps you to connect to students?
Well, I think that there are a couple of things. In 20 years of the work, what I've come to learn is that kids need two things. One, they need to feel safe. They need to feel like the grown-up in the room is in charge, is the leader, and that they are safe to just be kids. The other thing that they need to know is that you believe in them and you love them enough to set the safety boundaries. If kids come into a room, especially the kids that we have and that we service, who oftentimes do not have an adult to tell them or to create boundaries for them that they can trust, and they're so used to creating boundaries for themselves, if they come into a classroom and the little stuff that they do can shake the adult, then they don't trust the adult to be in charge. And so they have to take charge. It makes them feel comfortable. It makes them feel safer in a world that's not safe. And when you have several individuals doing that, and the teacher is not getting it in control or is kind of rocked by those things, they don't feel safe. And then they also start to feel like they can't trust you to set boundaries. So one way I connect is, or kids respond to me the way that they do, is not because I'm a principal, because there are a whole lot of principals out there that don't have the same effect that I have with kids. And I've been having this effect since I've worked with kids in high school. They've always listened to me. And so what I think that they believe is that I carry myself in a way that, yes, is authoritative. But they want that. They need to know who the leader is. And I carry myself as the leader, not as their friend, but as the leader. And it's the most primal piece of who we are. That's our basic human nature, is to look for the leader and to follow that leader. And then they know that I love them. I love them to pieces, and I love them enough to set the boundaries, to have high expectations and say, you're better than that, and I'm not accepting anything less than your best. So that's how I connect.
Can you talk a little bit about the most challenging student that you've worked with and what helped you connect with that student?
I think I've had several. But I think the one that stands out for me, and the story that I tend to tell, is the story of Alex. When I was a 4th grade teacher in Montgomery County, and Alex had come to 4th grade. He was new to the school with a pretty significant reputation of being a bully. He was very low functioning. He really struggled in his academic skills. And he was just angry with the world, and he took it out on the other kids. And I remember every day there were kids complaining about him, and what I did was, one, the same thing I've always done, which is, you're not in charge of this classroom, I am. You are a kid, and it's okay to be a kid in this room, because I'm the one who sets the boundaries, the expectations, because developmentally, you are not able to do so. And the other thing is, I was consistent. I said what I meant, and I meant what I said. So if I said you were going to practice walking in line, then that's what you did. And it wasn't the first time. It wasn't after saying it over and over and over again. They did it. If if he needed to have an assigned seat at lunch, he sat in his assigned seat at lunch, and I gave up my lunch to make sure that he sat in the assigned seat. The other thing was making sure that I saw the good in him when he did do good. And lastly, I think the greatest impact was being able to influence my pack. If you think about it that way, if I'm the pack leader, and the students are my pack, I was able to influence the pack to say, this is the way we function here, because this is the way the leader has established for us to function. And I allow the students to train him and teach him and not accept anything. And either he was going to leave or he was going to conform. And since as a kid he can't leave, he conformed. And I remember my class at the very end of the year choosing him as the most improved character. Not because I asked them to, not because I suggested it. It was an anonymous kind of, who do you think improved most in character this year? And they chose him. In the last assembly for that, they are the ones who congratulated him. He didn't know, and they were the ones who stood up. And so focusing on teaching them all how to love one another. And we loved them out of it, but it was hard. We had a lot of knockout dragouts.
Have you ever felt like quitting and giving up?
Daily, once a week, usually regularly. I have those moments like anybody else. The work we do is hard. It's hard, and it's hard trying to motivate people and take care of children and take care of grown-ups and have parents and grandparents come to my office and need my help and not always have the answers and feel like the weight of the world is on your shoulders. It gets tough. So I just wanted to quit yesterday. But then I think about, if not me in the fight, who? Who's going to love these kids the way that I love them? Who's going to sacrifice for them the way that I sacrifice for them? Who's going to sit in that office and feel like every time you have to suspend a kid or send a kid out, that it is a personal failure? Because if it is a personal failure for me, then I'm going to do whatever it takes to make sure that they stay in school. And I think a lot of people think that the kids who are the most challenging should be packed up and moved away somewhere. And that's not my philosophy. That's not what I believe. The most challenging kids need us the most, which is why they show up every day wanting to come to school because they need us. And so who else is going to do it? And so I show up. I show up.
Okay, thank you.
When I am down and oh my soul so weary, when troubles come and my heart burdened be, then I am still and wait here in the silence until you come and sit a while with me. You raise me up so I can stand on mountains. You raise me up to walk on stormy seas. I am strong when I am on your shoulders. You raise me up to more than I can be. You raise me up so I can stand on mountains. You raise me up to walk on stormy seas. I am strong when I am on your shoulders. You raise me up to more than I can be. You raise me up so I can stand your shoulders, you raise me up.